We took Dark Magician Primite to a local box tournament and finished 2nd place. In this video, we will go over some games from the 4 matches played that saw us finish with an X1 record good enough for 2nd place, which resulted us winning a quarter of a box of Rage of the Abyss. In the 4 rounds played with the deck, we had the privilege of playing 2 Blue Eyes White Dragon variants, 1 Goblin Biker, and Maliss. The list used in this video is almost identical to the one showcased a few days ago on my channel with a few alterations. I'll probably go over these in the near future, but if you do want the deck list, please check out that video. I go into an in-depth description as to why I played the cards that I play. Please note that no feature match is 100% perfect and misplays do happen. None of these are intentional, and if you do see any glaring misplays and illegal plays, please let me know in the comments down below. All it does is make me a better player, makes me aware of these mistakes. In addition, these feature matches are used as a learning tool first and foremost, not only for you, but for me especially. Moving on to round 1, we do play Blue Eyes White Dragon, and I'm just going to fast forward over to game 3 as it was the most eventful of the bunch. We did have some camera issues, however we managed to fix that, and we end our turn in game 3 going into Hieratic Seals, Dark Magician with Drill Beam and Imperm set. And this is kind of the end board you kind of want. We didn't have access to Secret Village, to Secrets of Dark Magic, but that's fine. Our opponent ends up getting True Light off Maiden, and here we're just going to shotgun Drill Beam, negating and banishing True Light, getting it removed from play completely to prevent our opponent from having access to it. Our opponent then normal summons Sage, and we decide to imperm it, which I don't think was relatively correct because he already used Maiden's effect, so all he was really searching off Sage here was Effect Veiler. However, he baited our negate fairly decently, and here we just use Seals to bounce the Mausoleum to prevent him from getting access to Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now, unfortunately, what we're trying to do here is get him to get rid of access to Blue Eyes White Dragon. However, he did have it in hand, which is unfortunate, so he uses Spirit's effect to summon the Blue Eyes, which triggers Maiden in grave. Our Seals does end up resolving, grabbing us our Magnamut. So Magnamut will get us a card in the end phase. So that's it for our interruptions going into our opponent's turn. So now here we're just trying to make sure our opponent doesn't kill us, and we're setting up some sort of defensive barrier in a sense by just having Dark Magician and Bestial Magnamut in defense mode as our opponent pretty much plays, and we're thinking about the crackback. We know we're going to get a Bestial off Bestial Magnamut, which will ultimately search us our Bestial Druid Swarm to help us play into our opponent's board on the crackback. Now our opponent does summon Jet Dragon, which when it will attack, it will bounce a card back to our hand. And here I think he's going to just attack into DM, bouncing it back to our hand to turn off the Barrel Dragon Engraved from adding itself back to our hand in the standby phase, which is a pretty good move in my opinion. However, fortunately for us, it doesn't matter because we do have a 2nd Primite Lordy Load in our hand, which gives us access to the engine anyways. Our opponent ends up with 2 Spirit Dragons, and we start our turn here. In the end phase, we do grab our Bestial Druid Swarm, and we are going to begin playing. Here, what I'm thinking is just get rid of the Blue Eyes, get it out of rotation completely before he sets up the negate, and that's exactly what I do. I go Bestial Druid Swarm, targeting Blue Eyes Engrave to essentially turn the Blue Eyes engine off for him unless he opens another one or another way to get into grave. He then decides to chain and tag out Spirit into the negate to kind of help himself to insulate his board from any sort of destruction and effects like that. So immediately I'm just trying to figure out a way to bait this negate. He knows I have DM in hand, and fortunately for us, we did top deck the Secrets of Dark Magic, which we activate, and he knows DM's in hand, so he knows Dragoon is a threat that's going to hit the board. He has no choice but to negate this with the Synchro Monster. And now I'm just going to try and get dragons on board, or a way to get rid of Bestial Druid Swarm from the field to essentially pop the Blue Eyes Synchro Monster that does the protection, Azure Eyes or whatever it's called. We then activate Primite Lordy Load and we search our Barrel Dragon, which then means we are able to set our Drill Beam from the graveyard. We activate Magician Soul, sending Illusion of Chaos because we have DM in hand, and I didn't want to go neg in that sense. And here we just link off Bestial Druid Swarm, which will send the Azure Eyes from the field to the grave, opening up, essentially making our game state a little more free and able to push into his board at least a little bit. We then just activate Magician Soul's effect, sending the extra copy of Primite Lordy Load to draw an extra card. We summon our DM off Lordy Load, And here I just think, okay, I can't really push into this board and go for lethal, but I know Blue Eyes Ultimate Spirit Dragon does destroy itself in the end phase, so I don't really feel like I need to invest too much to get rid of it. Keep in mind, our opponent doesn't have a Beast Blue Eyes in rotation because we did Bestial Druiswarm it away. So here he's just trying to Mausoleum effect, dump the Blue Eyes, which we do Ash. Our opponent then tries to tag out with Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, which does get bounced by Hieratic Seals. And here essentially is kind of where we take over the game state. Hieratic Seals does summon a Bestial Druiswarm for a little bit of extra pressure or applied pressure. In this example, our opponent doesn't have much remaining in this situation. He ends up passing turn back to us. And remember, we still have a Drill Beam set, which is really strong. In the end phase, in the standby phase, our Barrel Dragon does add itself back to our hand. And here is where we kind of take over the game completely. We're going to try to link off all 3 monsters into Selene access code to pop the last 2 remaining cards to ensure our opponent is left with absolutely nothing. Remember, we still have Primite Lord, we still have Drill Beam, and at this stage in the game, we are just going to trade 1-for-1 with the Primite engine, which is what it's so good at doing. When you get to turn 3-4 and your opponent is left with, and you guys are in a pretty much a battle of 1 cards, you guys are in top deck mode, the Primite engine just being able to reset itself over and over and over and again, trading 1-for-1 with your opponent is so game breaking, especially in the grind game. And that's kind of the state you want this deck to be. In a simplified game state, DM is very recursive and it's very strong. In addition, in the grind game, you have access to cards like Access Code, Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, which can help you clean up the game. But after you trading 1-for-1 with your opponent, you just out-resource them and outpace them essentially, which is something that Dark Magician is very poor at normally, but the Primite engine helps with that. So we end up taking game 3. Moving on to round 2, we play Goblin Biker P.U.N.K. This is a really interesting deck. This is a deck I have no familiarity with. So after getting completely demolished in game 1, we start game 2 by activating Bestial Lubellion, which gets hit with the Ash Blossom. Illusion of Chaos then searches our Magician's Rod normal summon, and gets met with an Infinite Impermanence. We then activate Magician's Souls, sending Dark Magician Girl, and the whole point of this is because we link off Rod into Spirit, the Spirit of the Blue Eyes, which then grabs us Mausoleum, sending Dark Magician to get both DM and DMG in graveyard and to help us with some sort of grind game. Magician's Souls sends our Mausoleum to draw 1 card before linking itself into the Blue Eyes Link 1, which grabs us access to Hieratic Seals. Bestial Baldrake then banishes the Blue Eyes Link 1 to essentially grab us access to Bestial Lubellion, which gets us access to Branded Regain, and we set our Soul Servant for potential follow-up. Our opponent starts his turn, and essentially here we're just Branded Regain, summoning back our Baldrake, and we have no idea what this deck does. P.U.N.K is before my time. I already got demolished in game 1, and I'm just praying to God I time my interruptions correctly. I've never picked up a Goblin Biker card and read it, so this is the first time I'm ever playing this deck, funny enough, and P.U.N.K is, like I said, before my time, so I have no idea what these cards do. Game 1 I got demolished, and here, even after reading this card, I completely misread it. I read it as a Synchro Summon, so when our opponent activates its effect, I bounce it with Seals. I thought it was a Synchro Summon even after reading it, which is mind-boggling to me. A mistake like that, I just completely messed up, and it happens. Our Seals bounces it back to our hand, but it doesn't matter because it still resolves. I was under the impression that it was a Synchro Summon, and I thought removing it from the field will prevent the Synchro Summoning. However, he does end up getting the Fusion Summon off. However, it's not the end of the world because Bestial Baldrake can essentially remove it from play by sending Bestial Lubellion to the graveyard, and Hieratic Seals activates Engrave to summon our Bestial Magnemite. Our opponent then goes into some sort of combo. I don't know if this is standard Goblin Biker combo, but essentially he makes 2 XCs and ends up going into Zeus after clearing our board. And Zeus is essentially what I think he was going for. He was going to kill me on the follow-up. If he was generating any follow-up in this situation, Zeus was essentially, I think, made to essentially end my turn, or at least try to stop me from playing my turn, and then he was going to kill me on the crackback, which is what I assume is what his game plan was in this situation. So after going into battle and clearing my board, he does end up making Zeus. After all this, which is fine. You know, it's what's gonna happen, and he's immediately has an answer to Branded Regain and potential Primite stuff if he does see that I'm playing it. Bestial Magnemite in the end phase searches Barrel Dragon, and then after I search Barrel Dragon, I activate Soul Servant, which stacks Secrets of Dark Magic. And the reason for this is essentially I want access to Red Eyes Dark Dragoon later on. We activate Barrel Dragon and to set our Primite Lordy Load, which then gets sent to the graveyard off Zeus. We activate Soul Servant to draw 2 cards. Like I said, we were setting up the graveyard in our first turn to make our Soul Servants draw 2 every single time. We end up setting 1 card and passing turn to our opponent. He ends up just swinging with Zeus, so we take some damage. In the standby phase, we grab Barrel Dragon again, which sets our Primite Lordy Load, and here is kind of where we take over the game. We drew into Drill Beam off the top deck, which is great. We just Drill Beam, banish away the Zeus, and here we activate Timaeus, sending our Secrets of Dark Magic to special summon Timaeus. My thought was with Timaeus on the board, I was able to get into Dark Magician. However, with Primite Lordy Load, I'm not able to activate special summon monsters effect. So all I do is I simply link, I swing for some damage with Timaeus and Barrel, link off into Heretic Seals, and pass with Dark Magician and Drill Beam set. Our opponent doesn't have enough to break this board, so he scoops, and we move on to game 3. We move on to game 3. Our opponent starts off game 3, and we do end up hitting him with a Nibiru. He passes turn to us, and we essentially do standard Primite combos, and we pass it back to our opponent because we can't kill them. During our opponent's turn, we just activate Drill Beam, essentially whittling down his resources and trying to put him to a state where he bounces back to us, and provides us with a game state where we can proceed to kill him. We banish his monster with the second Drill Beam, activate Secrets of Dark Magic, getting into Dragoon, and we essentially swing with Dragoon and Nibiru, leaving him on 3 cards set that don't do anything. He top decks nothing, and we end up taking the round there. Round 3, we play against the most feared deck in the format, in my opinion, which is Maliss. And in game 1, this is a very awkward situation I'm in, because I essentially, in order to play this game, I need to turn off Dark Magician and the entire engine by banishing it. And I'll explain how. We start off with Lubellion searching Bestial Boldrake because we essentially opened up a hand of 3 Bestials and 3 Bestials, Lubellion, and Primite Barrel Dragon. And in order to turn on the Bestial engine, we need to get rid of Dark Magician from our only Dark Magician from play, which is very awkward. However, sometimes decisions like this need to be made. We link off Barrel Dragon into the Spirit Dragon, which grabs us access to Mausoleum of White. Mausoleum of White sends Dark Magician from the deck to the graveyard, and this gives us a Dark Engrave to banish it to summon a Bestial Magnemite, which essentially allows our Bestial Lubellion to tribute it and placing Branded Regain. Branded Regain is unbelievable into Maliss. So when you have a board, for example, of Primite Drill Beam, Regained, and for example, Heretic Seals, it's very, very difficult for Maliss to play through that. So my opponent ends up top decking the Harpy's Feather Duster. We end up negating it with Primite Drill Beam because we have Barrel Dragon in hand. And essentially, we make our opponent's life very, very difficult when it comes to a card like Branded Regain and multiple Bestials. Because essentially what Branded Regain does is it shuffles back the banished monsters that Maliss needs to essentially help their combo pop off. I know it's only once per turn, but a well-timed Branded Regain can really be detrimental to your opponent. Our opponent summons a monster, which then triggers Regain, summoning Bestial Magnemite, and we activate Bestial Magnemite. We end up trying to Bestial Boldrake banish our Blue Eyes, which gets hit with a Dominus Impulse. Now, I want to make a quick disclaimer, and I understand that when you're watching this, it doesn't feel like Dark Magician because we're playing with all these Heretic Seals and Bestial control style, but sometimes we need to adapt. Banishing Dark Magician here isn't optimal, but in order to play and have a chance to win this game, we do need to turn off our engine in some capacity. Our opponent does end up going into battle phase, swinging into Heretic Seals. We then activate Heretic Seals effect to bounce, and we bounce the other monster back to his hand. He then tries to summon back his monster from the banish, while Seals attempts to activate Engrave to summon Bestial Boldrake. This was just to apply a little bit of pressure if he doesn't deal with it. Then linking off into Splash Mage, targeting his Maliss monster Engrave, which does get hit with the Bestial Druiswarm, banishing it to turn off the summon, summoning Bestial Druiswarm to our side of the field. Here, what we have access to now is we have a very simplified game state, and this is where Branded Regain and the Bestial Control aspect of the game really is able to take over. Bestial Druiswarm targets a Seal's Engrave. This is to turn on Branded Regain because we top deck a Soul Servant. Soul Servant stacks us Illusion of Chaos, so we get it off the draw when shuffling back Erratic Seals, and Illusion of Chaos essentially allows us to turn on the Dark Magician engine by summoning Magician Soul, sending Dark Magician Girl, giving value to Soul Servant. Magician Souls then sends our Primite Lordy Load and our Mausoleum to draw 2 cards, which then gets met with our Soul Servant banish to draw another card. We link off into Dark. This isn't to really target anything. This is just to get an extra attribute for Access Code Talker. Dark the Dark Charmer then links off into Slean into Access Code. We essentially end up popping the board and cleaning up the game state. We still have so many unbelievable resources, resulting in our opponent scooping and moving on to game 3. Unfortunately for my opponent, he got super unlucky and opened unplayable, giving us an almost free game 2, and we win round 3. Moving on to the match that essentially decided the outcome of the event, we get matched against Blue Eyes White Dragon, and spoiler alert, not spoiler alert, this is the worst game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I've played in a very long time. I'll explain what I did wrong throughout this video, but I played terribly in this match. I start off by activating Bestial Lubellion. Bestial Lubellion will search me Magnema from my deck and add it to my hand. I then normal summon Magician's Rod, which grabs me access to Soul Servant, and essentially the reason for this is because I have Lordy Load already in my hand. So essentially what Lordy Load will allow me to do is add Drill Beam, and Soul Servant essentially allows my Dark Magician stuff to be online, but Lordy Load does get hit with Dominus Purge. We link off Rod into our Blue Eyes Link 1, which gets hit with Effect Veiler, and we then banish Rod to summon Mag to turn on Bestial Lubellion, grabbing our Branded Regain. Now Lordy Load didn't summon Dark Magician because I had Dark Magician in hand alongside of Secrets of Dark Magic, so we just link off the 2 dragons into Erratic Seals and add our Bestial Druiswarm, my apologies. Our opponent starts off by activating Lordy Load, and this is a very easy Seals bounce, bouncing it back to his hand to essentially allow him to turn off his Primite engine. He then follows up by activating Triple Tactics Talents to look at my hand. Here I'm forced to shotgun Secrets of Dark Magic, because if he does shuffle the Dark Magician here, I kind of lose the game on the spot. So I end up making Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, and he shuffles back Bestial Druiswarm, which is really unfortunate because that would have been a fantastic interruption into this board. He normal summons Sage, which then he activates its effect. I negate it with Red Eyes Dark Dragoon to essentially prevent him from getting access to Maiden. Unfortunately, he opened Maiden, which granted him access to True Light. In hindsight, all I needed to do was save the Dragoon Negate for True Light, and I think I win this match on the spot. However, for some reason, I got trigger happy. I saw flashing colors in Master Duel, and I negated the first thing I saw. He ends up summoning a monster, which allows my Bestial Baldrake to trigger Engrave to summon itself off Regain. And here is another idiotic thing I do. He links off into the Blue Eyes Link 1, and for some reason I Baldrake send my Red Eyes Dark Dragoon to the graveyard to banish it. I have no idea. Ask me 100 times why I did it. I have no idea. It was the silliest thing I can do. I pretty much got rid of the most threatening card on the board, which was Dragoon, and I essentially gave my opponent the win once I did that. It was like, sure, my opponent was able to still generate a board, a game state for himself. Honestly, I'm speechless with my play in this situation. I don't know. I replay this match 10 times in my head. I'm not sure why Baldrake sent the Dragoon, but essentially it cost me the game. I attempt to activate Soul Servant to get a draw 2. My opponent negates it, and we lose game 1. Moving on to game 2, in draw phase, our opponent does hit us with Mochumi Perulia. So here we're just trying to play the game to prevent our opponent from generating any resources. We just send Bestial Lubellion to grab our Bestial Magnemut, and we set our copy of Drill Beam because we did open Primite Dragon Aether Barrel. And here we end our turn because we have an Ash Blossom in hand, a few Bestials, and our Drill Beam set. In our opponent's turn, he knows we have Bestial Magnemut, so he hits us with another Perulia. We Ash his Primite Barrel Dragon, and he links it off into the Blue Eyes Link 1. He activates Wishes. Here we activate Drill Beam to negate the Wishes, leaving him on just activating Maiden, setting True Light. He then activates his copy of Mausoleum to get access to Blue Eyes. With Magnema in hand, here we're forced to give him one draw with Bestial Magnemut, and unfortunately he drew into Sage. I don't know what to say. Our opponent is just insane. He had no cards in hand, and Bestial Magnema ends up giving him the one draw he needed to progress his game state forward a little bit. He ends up doing the basic Blue Eyes combo by setting Majesty of the White Dragons off True Light, and he then synchros off into Spirit Dragon, which deals with our Bestial Magnema, and we proceed to start our turn. Bestial Magnema does end up searching our copy of Bestial Druiswarm just for extra follow-up and interruptions, which we once again misplayed drastically. We normal summon our Primite Dragon Aether Barrel, attempting to set Drill Beam from grave, which does get negated by Spirit. We then activate Illusion of Chaos. Illusion of Chaos will grab our copy of Magician Souls. Magician Souls then sends our copy of Dark Magician Girl from the deck to the graveyard. And the idea of this is we're end up going to link off our Aether Barrel into the Blue Eyes Link 1 to send, and then send Dark Magician to the graveyard, just to have our graveyard filled with the bricks and allow our Soul Servant to be a draw 2. We then activate Magician Souls to send the Mausoleum for a One of Destiny draw. Hopefully we can pull that Soul Servant, which we don't, unfortunately. We do link off our souls into the Link 1, making our Hieratic Seals. We then attempt to enter our end phase. He then ends up destroying the Hieratic Seals with the trap card, which is fine. He activates True Light, which does get hit with a Ghost Ogre. True Light was going to destroy the Blue Eye Spirit Dragon, so he is forced here to tag out the Spirit Dragon into a Zero Eyes. Here comes our final mistake of the day. With Bestial Druiswarm, we don't banish the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Instead, we banish Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. And if we just banish the Blue Eyes White Dragon, it would turn off his Primite engine. But because we didn't do that, one silly mistake, his entire Primite engine is online, and we just have no way of coming back from this. Unfortunately, we just take the biggest L here because of a very silly misplay. With the event ending, we finish with an X1 record good enough for second place, with the way we played in the last round, I don't think we deserve second place, but we'll take it nonetheless. As we watch the pack opening in the background, we do pull an ultimate rare from the OTS packs. Not much else from the Rage of the Abyss packs. However, I do want to make a quick disclaimer that I am aware that I rewatched this video, and in most situations we aren't really playing Dark Magician because it's a heavy bestial package. Dark Magician is very much a supporting character within this list. Its main premise is to have your Primite cards constantly online with the vanilla Dark Magician. However, in addition to that, the main premise of the deck is to set up Hieratic Seals with access to Dragoon and your Primite engine to be online. So that's kind of how the deck was built around. Unfortunately, in these examples, we weren't able to utilize the Dark Magician engine as much as we'd like to have. However, that's just the nature of the game sometimes. I am excited to share more videos, more combos, more test plays to really showcase why Dark Magician and why the Dark Magician engine is so important in a list like this. So without further ado, I want to thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let me know in the comments down below. If you want, and please let me know what you want to see in future content when it comes to Dark Magician itself. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourselves an amazing day. Bye.